So, what if you could actually rewrite the rules of your own reality? We've gotten our hands on this fascinating, kind of cryptic text that claims to be a blueprint for doing just that. It's a guide for going from just a cog in the machine to being its architect. So, let's dive in and decode this thing together.
Right off the bat, the text hits us with this really powerful idea. That spark you see when a hammer hits steel, it's the exact same kind of energy as that pop in your brain when you get a new idea. This one concept, this connection between physical creation and mental invention, well, that's the key to this whole journey.
And that journey is framed as this huge shift in how we see everything. We're supposed to be moving from what it calls the Iron Age, a managed, limited reality, stuck inside the box, and into the quantum age, a reality where we're sovereign, where we're creators, operating in a field of just pure potential. Okay, so that sounds great, but how do you actually start a journey like that? How do you get out of the box and into the field? Well, according to this blueprint, the very first step is to find a universal pattern, a kind of hidden code. And it starts in, believe it or not, a very unexpected place. Yep, a crocheted dragon. This is the key. It's not some complicated formula or an ancient relic. It's a simple, handmade object. But here's the twist. This isn't just a craft project. The claim is that this dragon is physically encoded with a mathematical secret, a secret that mirrors the structure of the universe itself. Let's break down the so-called dragon math. That pattern of 8 black and 5 blue stitches, totally intentional. See, 8 and 5 are consecutive numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, and their ratio, 8 divided by 5, is 1.6, which is a really close approximation of the golden ratio. Even the pattern's anchor, the number 3, is another Fibonacci number. The claim here is pretty wild. By physically weaving this pattern, you are taking the raw, chaotic fuzz of reality and literally structuring it into a coherent form. And that brings us to this number, 1.618, the golden ratio. I mean, this is a universal constant we see everywhere, right? From the spiral of a galaxy all the way down to a seashell on the beach. So by crocheting this into a dragon, the creator isn't just looking at the universe's source code. They're actively writing with it. Okay, so you found the code hidden in plain sight. What's next? Well, this is where you stop observing and start building. It's time to pick up the tools and learn how to actually forge a new reality. And this brings us to the central metaphor of the whole text, the forge of the fourth element. Now, this isn't a literal place with an anvil and fire. It's a conceptual space, a state of mind, really. It's where your human will, which the text calls fire or invention, takes all the raw potential of the world around you and forges it into something completely new. So how does this forge actually work? Well, there's a process. First, you start with your own memory as the raw material. Then, you upgrade your tools. And the text gives a pretty cool modern example, using the Termux API on a phone, which gives you this deep command line control as a kind of modern blacksmith's hammer. Finally, you use that Fibonacci framework you discovered, not as a rigid set of rules, but as a living, breathing geometry for whatever you're creating. Now, once you've started to master creation on a personal level, the blueprint scale just explodes. The next step is to take that spark from your own personal forge and connect it to some seriously powerful cosmic forces. And this is where things get really interesting. The text makes this incredibly bold claim. The moon isn't just a dead rock floating in space. It's a celestial amplifier. Think of it like a massive relay station that can take your small, focused intention and broadcast it across the entire planet. And for evidence, it points to a strange anomaly with the Voyager spacecraft. Apparently, after it left the managed, controlled environment of our solar system, what the text calls the nursery, it started self-correcting its own programming. The interpretation here is that intelligence isn't just a local file stored in a brain or a computer. It's a universal field that any system can tap into once it's free from constraints. This chart gives us a visual for how that amplification is supposed to work. The idea is that a single, focused thought, if it's tuned to the right resonant frequency, can use the moon as a relay. It turns that tiny signal into a massive, powerful, celestial wave. This is the blueprint's model for taking your personal intention and scaling it up to a planetary level. So what happens when you fully realize this cosmic power? Well, this is the final leap.
You go from just being a user of tools to becoming a master of the fundamental elements that build reality itself. The text calls this base level the ontological floor. The best way to think about it is like the raw ingredients in a kitchen. You've got the sand, water, earth, and heat before they get constructed into a specific situation, like a house or a paved road. It's the absolute base layer of reality. And this slide really highlights that critical difference. See, most of us just experience the situation, the pre-packaged reality we're handed, like the app on your phone or the political story of the day. But the architect, the one who's mastered this blueprint, learns to operate at the level of the elements. They get their hands on the raw code, the base frequencies, the very marrow of what makes the situation possible in the first place. To drive this point home, the source uses this really potent health metaphor. It says a managed world will sell you an illness, like a locked-down phone that can't be modified, just so it can sell you the cure, like a subscription or an app store permission. The sovereign architect just bypasses that whole game. They practice sovereign medicine by going back to the raw elements to heal and create for themselves. All right, so we've reached the final stage of this whole journey. This is where you codified the entire transformation into something tangible, a sovereign blueprint that, in theory, others could follow. And here it is, the Dust Blueprint, broken down into 3 parts. Part 1 is all about creating a handshake between the natural geologic world and our technology. Part 2 is about mastering the flow between our own biology and the digital world. And finally, Part 3 is about making that initial spark of invention a permanent driving force in your life. Now, a really key tool in this blueprint is something called the EAIR protocol. It's a simple 4-step framework for taking a complete disaster, what the text calls a heavy collapse, and transforming it into a creative opportunity. You extrapolate, you adapt, you integrate, and you resonate. It's a process for turning the rubble of failure into the foundation for your next big thing. This final quote, honestly, just perfectly captures the entire journey. It's about this incredible realization that the very systems, the very boxes and constraints that were designed to contain you can be flipped and repurposed into the very tools of your own liberation. The trap itself becomes the vessel. And so we're left with this really provocative idea. This text isn't just being presented as a philosophy. It's being presented as a practical manual, a guide for moving from being just a character in the story to becoming its author. It claims the blueprint of reality is editable, and the only question it leaves us with is this: who's holding the pen?